Welcome to What Matters for the edition dated today, January the 5th, 2022. My name is Kong Yu. I hope you're having a lovely Wednesday so far. Now, of course, in the recent weeks, all of us Malaysians have been affected directly, indirectly, or at least moved in terms of our emotions when it comes to the situation of the floods, right? In Malaysia. So today we'll be speaking to our special guest via the phone lines today on this particular topic, right? And we're also, of course, endeavoring to go on Facebook Live as well. Are we live yet? Yes. Okay. And we're going to bring on our guest today for the segment, speaking to the Director of the Community Division from our Department of Social Welfare, JKM. Mr. Quek joins me right now via the phone lines and, of course, via the video line as well, yeah? Good morning, Mr. Quek.
Yeah, good morning, Mr. Kong Yu.
Yes, thank you so much for taking time out to be with us to talk about this very important topic. Now, as we know it, the Social Welfare Department plays an important role during this time, of the flood disaster, not just in, welcoming and also housing the flood victims per se, but also taking the efforts to ease the victims' discomfort and also burden, right? So today we'll talk about the preparation and the assistance given by your side. Maybe you can just brief us from the current situation perspective, Mr. Quek. Can you briefly explain the current situation on the ground? How many flood relief centers do we have currently at this moment? Are they enough to handle the number of people affected by the floods?
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Kong Yu and TRAXXfm for inviting JKM for this program of Momentum Was Matter on the topic of helping hand. So as a operation readiness, JKM has already registered 5,731 centers with a total capacity to accommodate 1.6 million flood victims. So as the active relative centers from 19 December to 4th January 2022 stands as 1,060 centers. So these centers can accommodate 37,040 families and 131,958 flood victims currently affecting 11 states. So the latest updates as today on 8 a.m. That we gained from the Info Bencana apps from JKM, the situation is a little bit improving. So the situation now is that is only 179 flood relief centers have been open now actively, and with 3,754 families with 12,339 flood victims. So compared to yesterday. So currently the states that have been inundated by the floods at the moment is consists of Pahang, Negeri Sembilan, Sabah, Johor, Melaka, Selangor, and Terengganu. So there is actively 7 states still inundated by the floods. So that is the current situation mentioned above. So currently, the designated relief centers are sufficient to cater the needs of affected flood victims and their families members.
Well, thank you for the update and also the brief, right? So I think at this situation, yes, after the time has set in when it comes to the adequacy of the flood relief centers and all that. What about the recent adverse effect, right? The unexpected adverse effects of flooding in Selangor per se. Would we be prepared for such an event in terms of logistics and manpower? Should some sort of similar situation reoccur? What's your opinion, Mr. Quek?
Okay. As JKM is one of the agencies within the flood disaster management in the country. So we are taking various measures to anticipate possible needs. So more certainly, JKM focuses on preparation of managing relief centers as stipulated under the National Security Council Directive number 20 lah, or we call it MKN 20. So in terms of anticipation of the floods of the second wave, we are mobilizing all the JKM officers, volunteers, our counselors, and also our psychological support team. So besides that, also we are allocation of procurement of essentials items to be distributed to all states welfare officers. So besides that, also as a part of the readiness, every year we always do the simulation training to all these concerns, especially the community those who have the flood relief centers. So basically, these relief centers are run by the community itself. JKM is only, monitoring and coordinating the activities of these relief centers. So we are giving them training on what are the roles and the functions of these communities that we form. We comprise people on the ground, people on the committee with the other agencies involved besides JKM. So the fourth one will be we are currently opening new forwarding centers. We call it in Bahasa Pangkala Harapan to supply goods and essential items to needed flood victims. So these forwarding centers will be shorten the time to deliver. The essential items or goods that be needed by the families, especially being cut off by the floods. That cannot be reached through roads. So these are the centers that we are replenish with all the essentials items for them for their needs, for their daily needs. So of course, since the Selangor floods and on the first wave, we also identified more relief centers to have to expand the coverage of the flood relief centers to all the prone to flooding and also the high risk population, especially in those very high density area population. So with that new relief centers, then we tend to gazette it. So we tend to register it. Then more services can be provided. Protection and shelter can be provided to the flood victims when there is a flood is ongoing.
Besides those that you list, thanks for sharing those preparations with us. Right? Any other preparations, just in case there is the next flood of flood disasters, or you have covered it all, Mr. Quek?
Okay. Well, in terms of JKM preparation to the next wave of floods, I think we have given the directives to all our state office to ensure that all our main depot or storage of good essential items are sufficient to tackle the second wave. So if you see the first wave, there's Selangor, Pahang, Terengganu, Kelantan. So those and Nismilan and Melaka. So those main depot has been used for the first relief. The goods has been. The essential items has been distributed. So there's a need to replenish the existing store. So, and the second one will be, we also giving directive to all the state officers to ensure that we have 165 main and mini stores and 151 forward centers are fully stocked with essential items. So these are the things that we do to ensure that all the goods and essential items are ready. Although to other states who are not been inundated by the floods. So these are the preparation readiness that when we anticipate to tackle if any possibility of the floods, the coming floods.
Okay, thank you so much for that answer. Right, we're going to take a very short break, Mr. Quek. I'm going to get you to stay online for about 20, 30 seconds. I can catch up on your breath and maybe get a sip of water as well. Meanwhile, of course, if you'd like to join us online at our Facebook timeline, we are at TRAXXfm Official. Join us there for our ongoing Facebook live discussion, of course, over the airwaves as well, for our weekly What Matters segment right here on TRAXXfm. Stay tuned. Be right back.
Visit the first national park in Malaysia and enjoy the sounds of nature and its serenity.
TRAXXfm 89.9 Jerantot Pahang.
You're tuned into our weekly What Matters segment. This time talking about JKM lending a helping hand to the flood victims and alleviating the flood disasters that have stricken Malaysia recently, right? Here in conversation with myself is Quek, who is the Director of Community Division from the Department of Social Welfare, joining us via the phone lines as well as via the Facebook Live viewing option as well. So do join us at TRAXXfm Official. We are live on Facebook now. Quick shout outs to, of course, Patricia Lim, right, for always tuning in, of course, showing a sign of support as well for us. Good morning to you, Patricia. Thanks for being with us. Meanwhile, of course, if you are on with us on Facebook Live, you have a question for Mr. Quek or a comment that you'd like to share with us, feel free to also post on the comment section. That's the best way to get in touch throughout the conversation today. Once again, big thanks to Quek from the Department of Social Welfare, JKM Malaysia. Mr. Quek, can you tell us about the assistance procedure? I think this is where some clarification would be awesome, would be also welcomed as well. What is the flow of assistance procedure put in place during the emergencies such as the recent floods?
Okay, thank you. I just want to clarify, I mean, it's clear that what are the really roles and functions of JKM. As I said earlier, the roles and functions are governed by the directive from the National Security Council, or we call it MKN20. So the MKN20 consists of the roles of what should JKM do. So the main role of this JKM do is to establish and maintain flood relief centers or flood evacuation centers. That is the main task of JKM. Because in MKM there's a red zone, green, yellow zone, and green zone. So JKM will be in the green zone, which mean those flood relief centers are located. So, and the second thing is that we are we have the responsibility to prepare and distribute essential items to flood victims at all the relief centers that we open. So that is the second task that we need to do. And the third one is to provide food and drinks at relief centers. Now we are giving prepared food because since the COVID-19, I mean under the movement control order, so to limit. Last time we used to cook, so now we prepare the food. I mean, prepare food to all the flood victims in the centers. So, and also one of the most important thing that we do is that in JKM is to provide emotional and psychosocial support to victims and their families. As you know, when these families lost their belongings, lost their equipment, lost their house, there's a lot of trauma been inflicted on them. So we in JKM try to give the emotional support to our counselors. Then we mobilize our counselors throughout all the areas that have been inundated by floods. So, and of course, we also have to make sure that the committee set up, as I mentioned just now, the flood relief centers or evacuation centers are actually managed by the committee itself. We try to empower the committee to run these centers. So JKM just coordinated and try to monitor the flood relief centers. So it's more on empowerment of the committee itself to run. So at the moment we have received very good cooperation from the community itself to run these centers in terms of the safety, in terms of cleanliness, in terms of food, in terms of activities, programs, and also psychological or emotional support. There's sorts of programs that been set up and been run in the flood relief centers.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, JKM also coordinates efforts and monitoring of relief work. We have 24 hours operation centers in our district and state level, and also in our HQ in JKM Putrajaya, we also have an operation centers to monitor the situations of floods, especially in our relief centers throughout the country. So mostly, as you know, the public, if the public needs to know about the situations of the flood, especially the relief centers and evacuees and the activities and the profile of those flood victims, they can download the Info Bencana applications to know the current situations of the flood relief centers in either in district or in the states.
Okay, and what is the procedure like when it comes to your site's plan in overall, right, helping those affected by floods after the flood recedes?
Okay, after the flood recedes, we recently on the 23rd of December, where we went for the meeting chaired by the Director General of National Disaster Agency Malaysia, or NAPMA. So they have a task. We have the immediate task to be taken. Is the focuses on JKM is actually doing the cleaning of those relief centers by our volunteers. This exercise is actually to ensure this center, especially schools. If you look at our relief centers or evacuation centers, mostly 80% are schools. So we have the responsibility to clean up the schools. And luckily, these 2 weeks of floods been inaugurated. Happened on school holidays. So schools need to be cleaned up for the next sessions of the schooling for those students in the primary and also the secondary schools. So the second one is more on that, is under the directive of NAPMA, as what they have tasked us to do is to provide psychological support to flood victims in the flood evacuation centers and also after the post-flood period. So we already mobilized all our councillors. All our councillors in HQ, in the states and in the district have been mobilized to provide those psychological, emotional support to all the victims within the evacuation centers and also those who have already gone home, and to provide them moral support and emotional support. So, and also we are also currently also on volunteers aspect. We are mobilizing our Malaysia Family Squad, we call Squad Keluarga Malaysia, to various locations, especially in Selangor and the Pahang side, to do the cleaning on the relief centers. These operations and volunteerism of cleaning these centers has begun on 26th of December till now. So it's ongoing. So that is what we are doing right now. So basically, as I said, the cleaning of the house, especially those who are affected, the flood victim house, we encourage it's actually under the directions of the district or the state disaster management committee. So they are the one who coordinate all the cleaning activities with all the volunteers that on the committee on the ground, the NGOs and agencies and etc. So they are doing that part of the job . So we on our side more focuses on our flood evacuation centers. And also, just to note that in JKM, we have so many child activity centers. We have community-based centers, CBR. So these centers are some of them, many of them affected. So those are the areas that we JKM volunteers and also JKM officers, focuses on these centers, because they are providing these services to all our target group. That's like children, the vulnerable children, our disabled, and also elderly. We have the elderly activity centers. So many things to do. There's in our JKM, because we want it to be operational. So these are the cleaning process that we done at the moment. We focus on our core business, which are the release centers, and also to all the centers that provide the services of JKM. So these are the focus. On the committee itself, I think there's a lot of NGOs, volunteers are coming around, and committees are doing, and also agencies which are coordinated by the state and the district national disaster committee.
What about the flood victims whose entire belongings have been totally destroyed? What kind of assistance is available from them, for them? Excuse me. Okay.
Just to answer these questions, actually this under the states or the PKOB, Pusat Kawalan Operasi Bencana. So the Central Flood Operation Command. So those who are affected, as we know, just for information, actually is not under JKM. Actually, I think the Prime Minister has announced on his message, on the New Year message, that the compassion aids or assistance will be given. So this is under the duration of the Prime Minister Office or the Ministry of Finance. So I think there's a few assistance that have been given out. Actually, the first one I think is the compassionate assistance is 1,000 ringgit for each head of the household that has been given out. So this, in terms of JKM helping out, is we are giving the list of those affected who are registered in our relief centers. And of course, those who are not living in the centers, those tasks has been given to the head of the villages. So this list will be submitted to the district officer to verifications, and of course go to the state level National Disaster Management Committee, and of course it goes directly to the NADMA, or National Agency of Disaster Management Agency, to approval and to disburse the aid to all the heads of the household. So, and for those who are, I think the government has given 10,000 for the next of kin. That's what has been informed to us, that this assistance is not through JKM, but to the state level and also the federal government.
Okay, the list that you're saying, right, Mr. Quek, and besides that, is there any other information at the centers themselves to point the evacuees to the right direction in getting this assistance? Is your site involved in this?
We in our sites that we are giving the list all those registered under because our responsibility is registering all the flood victims in the flood evacuation center. So we are giving the names nearly to those authorities So they are verifying the list and approval. So that is the thing that we do. And of course, on the larger scale, I think the government, I think under the Ministry of Finance and also the NADMA is giving, besides the individual household 1,000 ringgit and the 10,000 for any death occurred to the next of kin. There's a lot of other aids that we're giving to, purchase of essential items, repairing of houses if affected by the floods, rebate of electricity, discount on the repairing of cars, and also the parts of the vehicle. So is the total estimated aids that will be given is 61,000 altogether . That is the lump sum that what we've been informed to us . But this is only coordinated by the NAPMA and also the federal agencies.
Okay.
In the Prime Minister Department.
Okay, thanks for the clarification as well, yeah. I know you've listed extensively the services that JKM has provided or is providing to flood victims, also post-flood as well. Other than these, any other highlights that you'd like to include as well? Or are we already completed?
Okay. As I said, JKM provide other service. The core of our services is more on management of the flood relief. So other than that, also we give telecounseling . So any public who needs that been affected by the floods need to have emotional support can call us to our state's number, our telephone, and our counsellor will give will do the telecounseling. This counseling session will be involved of more on psychosocial first aid, education and emotional support and debriefing. That's the types of program that we given up to those flood victims that need emotional support and psychosocial support. So anything that the public want to know about this thing can also call the Italian Cafe 15999 or WhatsApp 019-261-5999. So, or we can call to the nearest welfare office or state welfare offices for any assistance. We can provide the assistance that be needed by the flood victims.
Right. Thank you so much. I've been speaking to Quek, who is the Director of Community Division from the Department of Social Welfare, JKM, on the helping hand that JKM is providing to the flood victims in Malaysia, right? Before we conclude the interview, right, Mr. Quek, can you let us know as well for our listeners and our viewers on Facebook Live, where can they go to find out more about these services that you've mentioned?
These services, of course, just now, on the overall side, on the assistance or aids, I would advise all the public to go to the district office or the state office to inquire the assistance that been informed. So whatever information, that is the latest information. So I will advise them to go to all the district officers because they are the one who do the verifications and also the approval, and also the state officers. So that is the thing that should be do. And of course, if those financial those services provided by JKM, I will advise to call at our hotline Italian Cafe, as I mentioned just now, 15999, or WhatsApp, or call our nearest welfare district welfare office or state welfare office. So in anything regarding of the services that JKM provide. So and lastly, for just to I would like actually to thank thank you and note our appreciation to all our JKM officers and JKM volunteers who are working tirelessly and selflessly in assisting the flood victims, as well as other agency officers and volunteers involved in the operation of the relief centers. Thank you as well also to JKM of other states who have also contributed, just to say that, to relief missions to locations in states affected by the floods during the first wave. For information, we have missions from other states who are not affected by the floods, they are going by missions to go to these states that have been inundated by floods. So I also like to the department JKM also like to take this opportunity to thank all the NGOs, corporate and private sectors, individuals, community leaders or groups who have contributed tremendously and also selfless help and is assisting the flood victims in providing food, essential items during the first wave of the floods which occurred on the 18th December till now. So thank you very much for your help. I think Malaysia is a very caring society and it's immediate. I mean, when the floods come, everybody automatically lend a helping hand to each other, to those who are in need. I mean, this is the culture that we need to inculcate and to enhance. So thank you very much to all of you.
Yeah, you're welcome, right? And thank you for your time out this morning, Mr. Quek. I appreciate it. And of course, a big thanks to Liz Hodges, Dr. Sam, as well, Patricia Lim for being with us, and shout outs on the Facebook live stream. Wrapping up today's interview, once again, big thanks to Quek Kia An, Director of Community Division, Department of Social Welfare, JKM, for being with us. Take care, Mr. Quek. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for tuning in. It's a wrap for this week's edition of What Matters as we head towards the close of the morning half of Momentum as well. I will be back after the brief noon news updates with more coming your way, and continue to stay locked right here on TRAXXfm. Stay tuned.